Hi, I'm the Brazilian investor, literally from Brazil. Today's video is about Banco of Brazil. Esqueci que sou brasileiro. Banco do Brasil. We're going to talk about its fundamentals, strengths, weaknesses, and my personal opinion about the company. But before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It's not a stock recommendation. I'm not a licensed financial advisor and do not make your investment decisions, solely based on an amazing YouTube video. Do your own research or consult a certified professional before making any investment decisions. And to begin, let's start from the beginning. Banco do Brasil was the first bank we ever had here in Brazil, and also the first company to go public in the Brazilian stock market. Therefore, it has a long history, has gone through many crises, and survived. It's clearly a resilient company used to face crises and risks, which is a great sign actually. A company with many years of history in a solid and essential sector. Here in Brazil, banks are money-making machines. Basically, a few major banks dominate the entire sector. The bank sector in Brazil is regulated by the Central Bank of Brazil and the National Monetary Council. All this regulation bureaucracy make it hard for new players to enter. An example of this is a recent news report, stating that Nubank might have to change its name due to new rules, because Nubank doesn't have an authorization to operate as a bank. It's a payment institution. Fun fact, in the past, Banco do Brasil, Bank of Brazil, also acted as the central bank, so in addition to being a commercial bank, it was also responsible for issuing currency and controlling the national monetary system. Over the years, it created several companies, forming a kind of conglomerate, from insurance to capitalization services. Today, it holds stakes in various activities, both inside and outside Brazil. Currently, Bank of Brazil is a mixed capital company. This means it is controlled by the federal government, and the remaining shares are available on the stock market. The bank's revenue comes from banking activities, obviously, loans, credit cards, consortiums. The point is, it's a leader in several segments, showing strong market share, especially in agribusiness. It's the go-to bank for agribusiness, which is one of the key pillars of the Brazilian economy, contributing significantly to the GDP and exports. The company has delivered positive results over the past 5 years, also delivering increasing dividends with a great frequency. And all of this strong performance makes sense since stock prices follow profits, and profits have been growing strongly over the last 5 years, along with ROE, return on equity, which remains above the historical average, currently close to 20%. This growth is driven by the bank's expanding credit portfolio, and not only is it growing, but is also more diversified. Growing the credit portfolio while also growing ROE shows that the bank has managed to keep default rates at safe levels, lending to reliable borrowers. We can see this in the drop in credit card delinquency rates, which are the highest but are also decreasing. Mortgage and payroll loans have low and stable default rates, different from Bradesco, which has been suffering with high default rates, although it's currently undergoing a recovery process. Now, diving into the numbers, especially for the first quarter 2025. The bank had been committed to delivering on its guidance, but in this first quarter we saw declining results. In fact, the bank suspended most of its guidance, removed some projections, and marked others for review. Just a reminder, the market was expecting profits of around 9.4 billion reais, but it was surprised by a 20% drop, with net income at only 7.4 billion. This drop was so significant that it marked the first decline in profit after 16 consecutive quarters of growth. It had been a long time since Banco do Brasil had even one quarter with a decline in results. Adjusted net income fell 23% compared to the last quarter of the previous year, and almost 21% year-over-year. This is one of the metrics now under review. But worse than the fall in profit is the suspension of the guidance itself, because it means the bank may not be able to deliver what it had promised. On top of that, ROE dropped. Previous projections were in the 18 to 19% range, but the bank only delivered 16.7%. If we compare this to Santander, which here in Brazil had been underperforming and trading at very low levels, Santander managed to deliver a ROE similar to Bank of Brazil's current performance. So what Banco do Brasil essentially did was drop to the level of a bank that's still in recovery mode, just as Bradesco. Gross margin also fell to under 24 billion. This metric is also under review. The lower bound of the yearly target was 111 billion, and they won't reach even that if the next quarters repeat the same 23.9 billion result. As for credit costs, those came within expectations. This refers to PDD, the provision for doubtful debt. Annualized, this totals 40.8 billion in provisions, almost 40.1 billion, which is close to the upper range of the guidance. Still, they put this figure under review, which suggests they don't expect things to improve in the coming quarters. Based on this quarter's 10 billion alone, they are still within range, so this is a point to watch, but not yet a major concern. In the expanded credit portfolio, all indicators related to credit quality worsened in this report. One positive note was the growth of the portfolio itself. It expanded at a healthy rate of almost 15%. But when we look closer, doubts start to arise. In banking, that's how they make money, through credit, and both default rates increased while the coverage ratio declined. It's around 170 now. And just to clarify, a health coverage ratio is usually above 200. Looking at the personal credit portfolio, it grew 6.6%. Meanwhile, delinquency remained almost stable, with a slight increase. But the segment that most pressured the bank's results was the agribusiness sector, which continues to grow within the bank's portfolio. However, delinquency over 30 days more than doubled year over year, and delinquency over 19 days tripled. In other words, the deterioration in the bank's credit quality is largely due to its rural agricultural operations. So, in summary, this entire drop in profits, all the increased provisions, and rise in delinquency rates, they all point to one cause: Banco do Brasil's agribusiness portfolio. Service revenue remained nearly flat, with a 0.2% increase year over year. Administrative expenses grew 7%. It's not a huge increase, more or less in line with Brazil's historical inflation. But if you remember that service revenue didn't grow, then yes, this also becomes a red flag. So after these not so exceptional results, does that mean Banco do Brasil is no longer a good company? Not exactly. We must remember it's a giant company with decades of history that has survived various market cycles. It has delivered consistent dividend growth and stock appreciation. It has shown increasing profits, and we must remember that this kind of poor result has happened before, and the bank managed to recover. One bad result doesn't mean the company stopped being a great company. The company that costs $4 today is the same one that cost $6 one year ago. Yes, the result fell, but in this dip, Banco do Brasil might be entering a new cycle and bringing new investment opportunities. Thank you for watching. If there's another company you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below. The channel is just getting started, so there's a good chance I'll see your comment and feature your idea in the upcoming video. See you next time, Brazilian investor, literally from Brazil, with facts, not samba. Muito obrigado, forte abraço e até a próxima. The company that costs $40